Welcome back. It is episode 6,748,561. I'm your host, Jacob Harris. I'm the co-host. We're co-hosts together. It's like a joint thing. We here today to talk about digestion, and we are also going to talk about drugs, because if we don't, then it's boring. So we're going to talk about digestion and how an activity, and then we're going to talk about if you're taking certain compounds, how your digestion may be affected negatively or positively. So to start it off, people are obsessed with digestion. We talked about fiber in the last one, but now digestion's talked about everywhere, and a lot of the time we hear it, talked about in the context of bodybuilding. So I guess we'll move into that secondly, but first and foremost, we know that digestion is. I need to turn my text messages off. Sorry about it. We need to talk about what digestion is and does. Connor's going to be able to be the smarter guy on that one and go into it, but we know that fiber is a part of it. We know that it's necessary, obviously, as a process that our body does. It burns calories. There's all these different things. But I guess the point of this one is that we want to talk about the considerations when it comes to digestion. As we all know, Connor, if we were to smash a big feed right now and then jump up and down as fast as we could a billion times, we might experience some uncomfortable feelings, whether it's, cramping, might throw up, all different kinds of things that will disrupt digestion. And then we also know, because me and Connor bond on, fuck's sake, go away. I need to, hold on. Me and Connor bond on reflux, something we've bonded on. If you eat a stools that we've, there's definitely some hemorrhoids and blood and stuff for sure. We'll get there. We'll do an ass podcast. We'll do a poo ass podcast. We also bond on indigestion, reflux, and that the whole world of eating too much, laying down, and then going, is this a heart attack, or do I need a burp 19 times? So, Connor, digestion, why don't you do your smart thing and explain?
Well, basically, it's the point of taking food from whole food to, I guess, at some point, feces and extracted nutrition from that. Begins mechanically in the mouth. You chew, you cut, whatever. You cut, the food that you're eating. That's the mechanical digestion part. There's some enzymes that are produced in your saliva that begin breaking down some of the food in your mouth. You swallow. Your food goes into a big vat of acid in your stomach, where the majority of food starts to break down. And then from there, it goes into the small intestine and so on. And at some point from the stomach through to your anus, different nutritional factors are absorbed and, used by your body. And what's not is excreted as poo.
Love it. Does anyone else find it as hilarious as I did to ask Connor to explain that? Because I feel like it just sounds so intricate when you explain it that way. Like, I just, you know what I mean? I feel like there's books from when we were, everybody poops, and it's like, and there's all these little things, but I love hearing like a scientific explanation of like eating, swallowing, and shitting. It's just amazing. And the thing is,
all it was, eat, swallow, shit.
That's all that it is. The thing is, though, lots happens in between, right? Which is the intricate part, the interesting part. I want to touch on the acid part. Boys, try and stay out of the camera if you can. I want to talk about the I guess like intricate part of the acid. This is something I had to learn about talking to you, right? So swallows goes down, right? For a little period of time, I was speaking to Connor and I was like, oh man, I'm getting this like reflux sort of thing. And he was like, oh, I've had heaps of that. And we started to delve into the world of like reflux, overall like stomach acid production and the balance that people have on and off. And this is why I feel like it's an important thing to touch on, because it's something that you're actually quite passionate about, because you've talked a lot about the fact that people actually don't understand this very often. And a lot of the time they're doing things to mask it. So I was immediately prescribed pantoprazole or a mazropol, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but one of these things that we all know, most people would know them as things like Nexium. That's probably like the main one. Remind me of the acronym, Connor.
Proton pump inhibitors is what the drugs are called.
Yeah, PPIs, right?
Yep.
So if you have a lot of issues with reflux and you go to the doctor or something, they're like, take this, it'll make it go away. And then people do, and they're like, oh, wicked, I don't get reflux anymore. But
yeah, and then they stay on them lifelong.
And just before we get into it, because Connor's going to explain why that's bad, some of the side effects that you can experience, or at least that I experienced, is for me personally, I had an increased heart rate, like quite often. And that's not like maybe a common side effect or even really an aggressive one. But for me, I'm quite aware of my body. So personally, I found that it actually I felt quite anxious. But I will point out, I also got put on quite a bit of it. So I was on, I think an amount is like 20 milligrams. I was given like 40 immediately, and just take 40. And then one day I think I actually fucked up and took 80 by accident. So, but Connor, why are they bad? Why are they not good?
Well, to keep it really quick, obviously your stomach is an acidic environment for a reason. There is a certain pH or a level of acidity that your stomach requires in order to effectively digest food. It also has one of the things that controls the sphincters, so basically the passages that open and close on either side of your stomach to either let food into your stomach or let food out, is also regulated by pH. So if the acidic content of your stomach is not acidic enough, you actually get opening of the esophageal sphincter, and that allows stomach acid to come back up. So that's often where you'll actually get some of the reflux from. So how a proton pump inhibitor works is effectively making the problem even worse in a lot of cases by furthering the lowering of stomach acid production by inhibiting hydrogen ion production in the stomach. That's what a proton pump inhibitor does. So, yep, you're going to get a reduction in symptoms, because now the stomach acid that is coming back up is less acidic, so it doesn't burn as much. But you're not addressing the root cause. You're actually furthering what's often, it's not always the case, but in more cases than not, it's actually low stomach acidity not allowing the esophageal sphincter to close that causes the reflux.
And then one of the things that you have mentioned before, I wanted to remember. Oh, hold on. No, it starts with a H. What is the supplement you recommended to me to try to increase my stomach acid?
Yeah, okay. So it's betaine hydrochloride. This is another one of those ones, like how we kind of spoke about magnesium glycinate, for example, where it's not necessarily the thing that you're taking, but the thing that's attached to the thing. Betaine HCl is just a carrier for a hydrochloride portion of the salt. Hydrochloride is the acidic, the acid in our stomach is made from hydrochloric acid. By adding more hydrochloride ions to the stomach, you're able to then increase the acid content of your stomach, which is going to improve digestion. If it is low acidity of the stomach that is causing the esophageal sphincter not to close, now you're going to help it get it back to the pH, which does allow that to close sufficiently and stop the reflux from occurring, as well as improving the digestion itself.
Right. But people can experience, well, as you said, without being able to really diagnose the issue. If the issue is not clear, someone may have the experience where they take the betaine HCl and then actually get more reflux, right? If it's the wrong thing for them to be taking.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a hard one. I'm going to preface this or reference the fact that Connor had mentioned something called Helicobacter pylori, which is, my understanding, it's like you've already got a little bit of it in your stomach, right? But it's a bacteria, but then once you get too much of it, it throws everything off. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's effectively a state of dysbiosis. It's normal to have an amount of H. pylori bacteria in the stomach, but if it becomes overrun, then it does begin to cause problems.
Yeah. And it's I mean, why? I remember this one thing I mentioned. So a doctor had mentioned to me that it could come from like, he actually blamed my muscle chef. He said it's very common in, these reheatable, light and easy type meals. He goes, the meat quality and all this sort of shit like that. And I was like, fair enough. Possible. Not saying it's not. I spoke to Connor though, and stress seems to be a big one.
Massive.
Right. So this is a thing that you get. What then happens is they go, hey, you got this thing, and you go, cool, what do I do? And they go, here is 3 times the amount that you would normally take of antibiotics because you would take it over a 3-week period. I want you to take it in 1 week, which another little side effect that I enjoyed was a bit of increased heart rate, which made me feel a little bit sick, felt pretty nauseous because it was quite a lot. They gave me amoxicillin. What's the other really strong one? It's like one of those really.
I can't remember what the other antibiotics is. Maybe a Fluclox.
Amoxicillin, and there's another one that sounds strong as well. Can't remember. And then guess what they give you? They give you pantoprazole again, right? You've got to take it again. But I will point out, when you need to get tested for the H. pylori, you have to come off the PPIs as well. So he gave it to me initially. I was taking it. I said, hey, I don't like this. I want to get tested for the H. pylori, which they did through a blood test. And he said, yes, you do have it. What we need to do now is put you on this thing, and then you have to come off that again before they do the breath test to find out that you've got it. It's fucking annoying, all right? I hated it. It was shit, but I did get rid of it the first time around, luckily. Not to say it can't come back. And I've still not totally worked it out. So if anyone who's interested in understanding that, it is something that can happen to people. And a lot of people just have reflux and ignore it, which is something I was not aware of. I actually know a few people who just say that they get it and they've just never even looked into it. They just kind of ignore it, and they try to avoid trigger foods, which is a pretty common one for me. Fatty food, which is a very common one for anyone, but for me, particular certain things, anything that was really oily or fatty set it off, and for whatever reason, chocolate was fucking hell bad for it. So any dark chocolate, just any chocolate really, that was the main stuff, chocolate and fast food. And alcohol was doing it as well. And if you've ever had pretty shitty heartburn, you know that it's kind of like back in the day when you used to smoke like 6 bongs really quickly, and then you would be like way too high all of a sudden. Then you'd be like, I'm never doing this again. But then you wake up the next day and someone puts it in front of you and you're like, oh, all right. So that was my experience with that. And we're just touching on that because we've talked about this before, that we were going to bring this up on a podcast. I'm still yet to get the colonoscopy, which I can't wait for. Connor's told me it's good. It's fun.
Great fun.
Good fun. So that will help me understand a little bit more, I suppose. But for whatever reason, I have obviously cleaned up my diet quite a bit as well. And for the most part, I would say 85% of the time I'm eating a lot better. I do take a probiotic every day, and I do eat around about 150 to 200 grams of kefir pretty much every day. And so that's one thing I will say has been putting that in most of the time has made a difference, because obviously I'm trying to improve my gut health. So I guess one of the things we wanted to talk about here, and we're just going to mold it in together, is we mentioned activity, right? So what we're talking about here, reflux, indigestion, all that sort of stuff, these things are generally going to happen for the most part. If you've ever had it, you generally end up pacing up and down, right? You're trying to walk around because it's the only thing that makes it better. Eating heaps of shit and then laying down is a quick way for it to happen. And so activity, this is how we wanted to talk about digestion and how it affects it. So one of the other things is fiber, and all these sorts of things are great for digestion, are very important. That being said, they can get in the way, right? If you consume a very high fiber meal and then decide you want to do a bunch of activity, you are most likely going to experience gastrointestinal discomfort.
Yeah, especially soluble fibers that are going to pull fluid into the intestinal tract. And another one, just while I remember it, because I have fixed quite a few people that have had digestive issues with their pre-training meal. Sugar alcohols, in many cases, also pull waters or pull fluid into the digestive tract. What is a very high and I guess Instagram popular food at the moment, and I love them. I think they're very good. They have plenty of health benefits. Dates, they're getting pushed all the time as pre-workout food on Instagram. Small amount, maybe. They're very high in sorbitol. Pretty much everyone I know that consumes any decent amount of dates ends up, dates would be one. Prunes would be another as well. Because of the sorbitol content, yep, high in carbohydrates, but they're going to pull fluid into your stomach. Great for bowel movements. Not so great if you're about to go run around and do a bunch of activity and have a bunch of fluid that's sitting inside your stomach and swishing around. Also produces a lot of gas too, so you'll find people that consume these high sugar alcohol foods prior to training end up getting a bit gassy and bloated like that as well.
Makes sense. And as you said, this is where we get more in about timing. Before training is a big one. I've gone through stages of doing all kinds of straight up stupid shit before I train. Eating meals that are high in fat, eating meals that are high in fiber, things that don't really make sense, but just kind of I did because it was a convenience thing. Back in the day, I used to really like rolls for some reason, which are like not the way to go. But for whatever reason, if I had like ham and cheese roll, really nice white fluffy roll or whatever, I don't know, it just felt great afterwards. When I would go and train on it and feel really, really good. And there was probably some fiber in it, but for whatever reason, that was a big thing for me. Then you've got things like LCMs. I went through a stage of doing that whole thing. They were a big TikTok thing for a while. Probably less of an issue, no real fiber.
That's just rice at the end of the day.
Yeah,
really
but
rice and the sugar.
Probably still not the greatest choice in terms of like you have better choices out there, but there's nothing really wrong with them. But I just mean, I've done everything when it comes to different forms, eating full meals, small meals, drinking liquid. For me personally these days, if I really need something, I can actually just drink like a little bit of Gatorade, and I'm not doing super intense workouts, so that sort of helps for me. PedTest Australia is a WA-based company providing at-home testing kits for a range of black market substances, underground or counterfeit drugs that can often contain a different substance than what they claim, or nothing at all. In 2024, 5% of oil-based steroids contained no active ingredient. Oral steroids were even worse, 12% contained no active ingredient. PedTest Australia kits provide a quick and cost-effective method of screening products before they are used. Kit results help users make informed decisions about substances they choose to take and therefore reduce the risks they are exposed to. Don't take chances with your health and gains. Test it before you take it. Go to pedtestaustralia.com to order your test kits. Bulk Gym Chalk Australia are your go-to suppliers for gym chalk. Whether you are doing powerlifting, weightlifting, strongman, gymnastics, or running a competition event and need bulk supplies and prizes, they've got you covered. Options include block chalk, bowl chalk, liquid chalk, or invisible liquid chalk for those gyms where you aren't allowed other options. They even have a range of athlete recovery bath salts to soak those training aches away. Check out the range at www.bulkgymchalk.com.au. This is the point when it comes to activity because, as we know, we just talked about digestion, how important fiber is. But there's that access to it. And this is where it's all about, nuance and what we're kind of talking about here when it comes down to extreme activity. So let's say all of a sudden you're going to do some endurance and you're going to do something like Kokoda or you're going to do especially if you're doing any kind of ultra running, or you've got these people who do massive CrossFit events and stuff like that. One of the things that we want to try to avoid is fiber.
Yeah, and actually, I do have a client that runs ultras, and the nutrition program that he was provided for his ultra, like 50% of the carbohydrates were from oats. I don't know how the fuck anyone could expect someone to go out and run 100 kilometers while they're fucking shoveling half of their food in from oats. And I see it all the time with the endurance stuff as well. Like, I get they have to get calorically dense stuff in, but they're there eating peanut butter and like highly fibrous crap that just doesn't digest well. And I'm like, you are a very mentally tough individual, so it may not have quite as much of an impact on you, but this is not at all the way to be fueling for an event like this. It is really surprising how poor the fueling strategies I've seen in what is a sport that requires such an extreme level of fuel demand.
For sure, but
some of the worst.
And even when it comes to density, it's not like you can't create density through carbohydrate intake, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or even a protein. So something that I have seen, or something I recommended to a client where he was like, all right, I'm going to be stuck here. And I was like, okay, well, look, if you've got access to this, this would be my go-to, right? He took some protein powder with him and it said that there might be some cereal. I was like, cool, all right. So that's great. That's actually really good to have access to. So my suggestion would be something like some rice bubbles. I would tell you to have like as much as you kind of feel like you can, to be honest. Obviously, don't eat like overeat, but chances are 100 grams for you or me is very different than 100 grams for a normal person. 100 grams of cereal to me, I'm like, only 3 servings. Get some skim milk in. Like, there's no reason to go for a full fat milk unless we really need calories. Chuck fucking 20, 30 grams of honey on there. It's only going to make it taste better. You'll be more palatable. Why not? And then really, if we wanted to, let's get a serving of that protein powder in there. You know what I mean? And like mix it in. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to be 600-700 calories in a bowl of cereal. And we're talking over 100 grams of carbs. Like, you know this, right? Like, that's a great option. But you just say that to some of these athletes, right? And they're like, what? Like, we're just like refined sugar and shit. And you're like, brother, do you even understand what you are trying to do?
Yeah. I think the thing around sugar is, it's contextual, obviously. If you sit on your ass all day, you probably don't want to be eating a shitload of sugar. But if you're an athlete, I got no problem with sugar, man. If people looked at my food diaries, I consume on training days 500 grams of sugar pretty much every single training day or more. Half a kilo of sugar. Like, literally, if you went and bought a kilogram of fucking sugar packaged from Woolworths, out of all the food I'm eating, there is literally half of that every single fucking day that I consume on training days anyway.
Yeah. I have seen Connor consume what only I could describe as what should be an illegal amount of maple syrup.
Yeah, well, treacles are my go-to now. I have shifted my potassium target slightly higher, and maple syrup, unfortunately, doesn't quite get me there. So it's more molasses than treacle these days.
All right. Yeah. Well, even still, right, there's other things that you can add to it. And as I said, even mentioned, the cereal meal or something like that, if you were to add, you can even add some bananas to that or something like that. But what you would, as we said, there's those different ends of the spectrum where you might still feel like you're doing the right thing, but you've got a meal like that. And on the other side of that, we've got oats with full cream milk and raspberries. And you know what I mean? Like, and we've got 20 grams of fiber versus a 2 gram of fiber meal. Like, as you said, some people just aren't aware and they're just smashing these things and not thinking about it. And also just even fat, it's a big one. You know, we don't need that digestion. We want shit that's going to be quick. And, you know, as you said, does not apply to most people, but anyone who's trying to do anything like that, yeah, the go-to should be thinking of that. Because a lot of the time, right, especially as people, like, I've had people do that, and they're like, yeah, I ate a lot of trail mix. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Fuck, dude. That's like the worst thing you could choose.
Exactly right. Yeah. I'm waiting 3 days from now.
Yeah. Look, if you're stuck in the jungle, fuck, get on the trail mix, you know. But and also, I mean, I have a client who's doing Kokoda, and there is a struggle there because to an extent, he's going to be stuck. And there, at some points, I've said to him, look, man, at night time, if you need to fucking get calories in and you need to smash some Pringles or some fucking trail mix or something, get it in, because I'd rather you eat calories than sit on 1,500 calories all day because you're trying to avoid fat. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's very different though as well when you've got 2 weeks worth or a week worth of consecutive back-to-back days worth of output to do.
Yeah.
Again, all context different. It's never going to be the same for 2 people. 2 different jobs require 2 different preparations, 2 different outcomes. It's always going to be individual and goal dependent.
It's also time relevant as well, right? Like we said, if he does that at night time, that isn't nowhere near as detrimental as him doing that in the morning, right? The other thing I want to point out, or the other thing I'll move on to it because we time is of the essence, is drugs, right? We have to talk about them. So if someone is consuming certain compounds or peptides or anything like that, there's going to be some effects of this sort of things. One of the things we brought up at the moment, everybody is obsessed with Retta, right? It slows down digestion, right? Or gastric emptying. It's slowing that process down, which means that might be something to be aware of, right? Definitely. In certain contexts, you know?
Definitely.
So if you were to then have a really, really high meal that was going to require you to digest a lot, lots of fiber and things like that, and you were on Retta, and then you went to try to immediately do some activity, you might notice that. I don't know why the fuck you would be doing high intensity endurance if you were using Retta, but you never know.
It happens. Look, the other thing to keep in mind, as it currently stands, GLPs are all still fair game and drug tested sports. So I think you probably would find that there are athletes, particularly in sports, where keeping body weight very low is beneficial, but they probably are being used.
They probably would be, I suppose, but it's something to be mindful of, knowing that's a part of it. And it's something, that's why some people, for instance, with Reddit, there's, I don't know, it's probably not like tons of people experiencing it, but I've spoken to people at least that have experienced a degree of constipation because,
if you don't watch nutrition.
Which, you know, let's face it, I would argue that more than 50% of the people taking Retta, and such a generic percentage to throw out there, but I would not be surprised if more than half the people are taking it have fucking horrendous diets. Like I have a client on it at the moment, and every time I talk to her, it's like she tells me what she had for dinner, and I'm like, what? Just eat food. Well, why aren't you eating food? Like, why is everything air fried and shit? Like I'm just like.
And you get this other big phenomenon that seems to blow people away with I'm on Retta, but I'm going to go have McDonald's. No wonder I feel like shit tomorrow. Fat significantly slows gastric emptying. Retta significantly slows gastric emptying. Two things trying to push towards the same direction. You're going to get to that fucking direction pretty fucking quick.
Especially if you smash a really high salt meal at the same time and you happen to be someone who's like clearly not a fan of taking care of themselves. So the chances that you're actually hydrating yourself efficiently are pretty low. You're probably also drinking fuck all water, smashing McDonald's and then going to bed. It's not a great combination. As someone who has had some gut issues and a couple of times where there's been roadblocks, all right, I don't know why you would want to go through that because it's fucking horrendous.
Yeah, but on the other side of the spectrum, you can also, in a well-structured diet with something like a GLP, and I do this occasionally with clients, maybe not the most optimal for training performance, but in terms of a way of improving the appetite regulation portion of a GLP that slows gastric emptying, sometimes adding a little bit more fat as part of the daily calorie intake to get just a little bit more slowing of the gastric emptying happening can actually be an effective way to almost improve the output that you're getting from the GLP as well.
But if you are listening to that, Connor is referring to dietary fat, not fat from fucking McNuggets.
Exactly. Add a little bit of avocado to your meal. Have some nuts with your meal. Some almond butter with your final meal. Something of that nature. Those mono and polyunsaturated fat predominantly have some pretty, even if you look at some of the studies on olive oil, the appetite regulation that comes along with olive oil has been shown to be pretty high. So using some of these healthier fats, which are cardiovascular healthy, can improve the lipid improving and metabolic improving impacts of the GLP, as well as also help improve the appetite regulation aspect as well.
Exactly. And speaking of appetite regulation, one of the other things that can have the opposite effect on gastric emptying, right, by speeding it up, is the old popular I can't even remember the numbers now. MK, what is it now? One.
Hang on, come on. Well, I'll give you. There's a popular meme. Well, I think it's a Fortnite thing. It's
167.
No. 667.
667. Fuck. Damn it. Yeah. Well, look. It's. I mean, I don't know how much people talk about it now, but man, YouTube fitness 10 years ago, fuck, it was everywhere.
Yeah. So pretty much
not a SARM.
Not a SARM. Not a SARM. It's a ghrelin receptor agonist. Any drug that effectively, any of the drugs from the growth hormone class that works via agonizing the ghrelin receptor is going to have some impact on speeding up gastric emptying. So doing the exact opposite of what the GLP class does. Instead of slowing the time it takes from the food that goes into your stomach to leave the stomach, it's now going to speed that up. One of the reasons as to why you tend to get quite an additional hunger impact when you use these drugs. Sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not. Yeah, it just depends on the situation.
Well, that was one of the ones we talked about, but I did look it up to see if there was anything else listed. And ChatGPT just deleted it. It's annoying. But I did.
Yeah, you go.
No. I just looked it up. There wasn't too much, but it was just a mention of those things, and then it wasn't Ibutamoren. I don't know. There was some other things mentioned about the thing that could affect digestion in that way.
Yeah, so GHRP2, GHRP6, Ibutamoren, MK677, Tesamorelin maybe.
BCP 157 for digestive health is one of the things that came up.
Yes, BPC 157 will improve can improve digestive health, doesn't or it shouldn't impact gastric emptying. It's more going to be improving the integrity of gut cell lining and stuff of that nature. Something that's pretty accessible to most people, something like ginger has a mild improvement in the speed of gastric emptying as well. So ginger is something that you could possibly be using alongside meals, say if you have to get a pretty significant amount of food down and do want a little bit of a mild improvement in the time of your normal gastric emptying speed.
What about something like a digestive enzyme?
That's a pretty broad class. If you go and look at labels of digestive enzymes, what is inside a digestive enzyme changes massively from enzyme to enzyme. Often there will be some ingredients that have some impact on speeding up gastric emptying. Ginger is one that you will often find inside of the digestive enzymes for that. But yeah, it'll just depend a little bit on what brand you're going with.
Home brand, Chemist Warehouse brand.
I suggest Now Foods Super Enzyme if you want a good but well-priced enzyme, if anyone's watching this.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think it's been good to cover the differences between things being speeded up, being slowed down. They're both relevant, and they're not something that most people will need to worry about. But that being said, now that I think something as simple as, a pharmaceutical, compound or peptides, now that they're becoming actually more accessible, I think it's something to consider more to an extent. I mean, they were probably always accessible, but now that, my friend's mate's dog's sister is talking about Retta, I think that it's something that people need to take into consideration because, as you said, people are still going to treat their body like shit. Generally, people who are jumping on Retta that aren't doing anything else to their bodies are also the same kind of people who, like I said, they're not going to hydrate properly. They're not going to think about any of this stuff. And in terms of nutrition training, that's another thing. Tree training nutrition, that's another thing. People just don't even think about it. For the most part, your average person can get away with a banana an hour before they train, and it's fine for most people. But it's still just something to consider if they're running out of energy. It's to consider that. Also, post training nutrition as well. When I was going through some really bad stuff in my stomach, I actually had to be really careful, and I could only really consume liquids for about an hour afterwards because if I ate too quickly, my my body wasn't really taking enough blood to my gut again, or something was happening.
100%. That's, I think, a key thing to touch on right there. Digestion is very blood heavy. Our bodies are very good at redirecting blood called hemodynamic flow to wherever needs it most. If you're training, you go train straight after you've eaten, or you go eat straight after you've trained. The bicep curl, where your bicep is requiring oxygen immediately to stop severe hypoxia occurring and continue being able to contract, is more important than your gut. Your body is going to redistribute blood away from the gut towards wherever the fuck you're training, wherever it needs to be. Now all of a sudden everything you're digesting slowed down to 10% of what it was before.
Yeah, and you will feel it if you ever do it wrong, if you ever do anything, which is a lot of the time, there's a bit of connection here sometimes where people will do large cardio bouts or large high intensity training for about half an hour, most people, or sometimes longer, people will be able to relate to this. You don't feel hungry. You actually don't want to eat. Yeah, you'll feel kind of almost, sometimes I even felt almost a bit sick, but not sick to the point where I was really, I'm sick. It was like, ugh, like I don't want to eat right now. They got to get away from me. So that's just something else to take into consideration. As Connor said, that's actually something a lot of people really don't think about, because often when people train, sometimes they are really hungry afterwards and they just don't even think about it. No, I'm just going to eat straight away. And a lot of the time, as we already mentioned, people aren't reaching for the greatest stuff. So imagine that. Someone goes, yeah, I'm going to eat straight away. Boom, 15 grams of fiber. You know what I mean? Eats one of these PhD or these smart bars, 28 grams of fiber in a smart bar. One of the smarter things in that situation could possibly be, I need some quicker carbohydrates to help replenish how I'm feeling. Some protein's always nice, but if I really want to keep it simple, man, even a glass of orange juice 45 minutes after you train for most people is probably enough to actually bring you back up.
Even one of those little like Chobani fruit yogurts, calcium, potassium, protein, carbohydrates, simple, digests easy, covers your bases pretty fucking well across pretty much everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is where we brings in when we were talking about the endurance and stuff. I thought everything's isolation, right? And it should be isolation. Fiber's good, and this is one thing I've learned more about recently and stuff. Fiber's good, and protein's good, and everything's good. But think about what you're doing and how relevant it is to that. Same with the drugs that we mentioned, whether it's MK677 or you're talking about Retta or something like that. Everything is fine using it in a certain way, but just always keep in mind that there's going to be variables that you need to consider because they're going to affect each other. It's always going to be a knock-on effect. It's like a game of pinball. Everything's doing its job, and if you don't think about it, that ball's going to get stuck, and then you can't shit. Don't want that.
And if you are an up-and-coming coach, or maybe you're self-coached and you're using the Retta or any of the other GLPs, and you've got a high carb day or a carb up for a competition coming up, well, you can thank me for potentially leading you in the right direction on some of the ways that you could possibly think of counteracting these issues pharmaceutically or even supplementally with clients that are using longer half-life GLPs when you need a very acute, I guess, almost stopping of the drug's effect.
Yeah, credit to Connor for that one. We can leave it there. That was good overall coverage. This is something I think we'll go over again in the future, and we'll expand on it. And there's definitely some different directions we can go in as well. Hopefully, after I get my camera up the bum, maybe we can debrief.
Well, I'm due for one pretty soon, I think, as well. So maybe we can do a post-colonoscopy review.
Colonoscopy conversation.
Colonoscopy comparison.
Yeah, 100%. Can we get like images up? This is how clean my bowels are. We'll talk a little bit about that because that actually there's more to say there. But what we'll do is leave it there for this week. Please make some suggestions if you want us to cover some topics. It's always helpful. For now, though, we'll see you next week.